So with the news that Brock Purdy will probably be the starter in San Francisco as week 1 comes around in a few months, I want to talk about what this means for Trey Lance, Brock Purdy, the 49ers overall, and just kind of express some of my feelings about Brock Purdy and specifically Trey Lance. So let's start off by throwing Brock Purdy's stats up from last season. Ignore the first 3 games. We're just going to talk about the games that he started. And obviously they won every single regular season game that he started. And if we look at the stats, 210 yards, 185 yards, 217, 284, all great games overall. If you look at the QB rating, all of the QB ratings are pretty good too. And I don't want to hate too much on Brock Purdy overall, but it seems like when I watched him, I just didn't really see too much special with him. He made everything that he needed to do. He made every throw that he needed to do. The only kind of downfall that I watched was when he was under pressure, he wasn't as great as you would hope. But overall, I mean, looking at the stats, Brock Purdy was a great quarterback last year, especially from where he got drafted, when he got thrown in. But we can't forget how good this team is and how good this team was built. This team has arguably the best running back in the NFL right now with Christian McCaffrey, one of the best tight ends, a receiving core that is fast, can catch, and can run routes, and just does everything they need them to do. And that's why they've been in the NFC Championship so frequently, been in the Super Bowl too. They almost won, had a chance to win, but that's a different story. Jimmy Garoppolo and the Chiefs didn't end up going very well for them, but now they have a new quarterback. And they traded all of these assets to get Trey Lance. And when I look at both of these guys, I know Trey Lance hasn't had great games. I'll throw up his stats right now, but we've only seen him play 8 games. Are you really going to give up on Trey Lance this early on in his career? I think the main reason why I still have so much belief in Trey Lance is that he fits the mold of this system perfectly. Coming out of college, he was the read option quarterback. Like, you go out there and he would be able to run play actions phenomenally. That was my number one trait that I saw from him coming out of college, and that's why when there was kind of this debate around whether Mac Jones or Trey Lance at 3 for the 49ers, I was all aboard the Trey Lance hype train at that point. I also wasn't a huge fan of Mac Jones as a prospect, but that's a little different. But the main reason was because he goes back and he can fit perfectly in this system. Looking back on all of the tape that you can see, he just ran the play action perfectly at NDSU, and then going to play for Kyle Shanahan in this 49ers offense, it just fits in perfectly too. And there's going to be some debate throughout this whole season, especially this offseason, going into week 1, who the quarterback will be. They've said that it's probably going to be Brock Purdy, but we know he's coming off an injury, and as I record this, he's throwing about 3 times a week, while Trey Lance is still in there getting the first team reps. Sam Darnold getting the second team reps at this point. I don't think Sam Darnold's really a factor in any of this quarterback controversy, but I do think a guy like Trey Lance, you can't trade him at this point. I mean, he's only played 4 games, and you trade him to a team that uses him well and fits their system, and you're going to regret that for a long time. I still think there's a lot to be untapped in Trey Lance's game overall. I mean, we've only seen him play 4 games, like I said, starting officially. And if you trade him away, which is kind of unrealistic at this point, it almost seems like a team would have to give up a second-round pick, and it was probably more likely that they traded him before the draft, especially now, teams trying to settle into their offenses, everything. But I still think if you're the 49ers, he should start week 1. You invested so much in this guy, and I know Brock Purdy showed signs, but he was Mr. Irrelevant. It's not like you traded up to get the 3rd pick and invested your future in Brock Purdy. He went in there and he did what he needed to do until he got hurt, and obviously they lost in the NFC Championship, but you have to go in on the guy that you put all your chips on the table for in Trey Lance. And we'll end up seeing what happens by the time week 1 comes around. We could also end up seeing Brock Purdy in week 1 and Trey Lance finish the season. We don't know what's going to happen, especially with this 49ers team. Knock on wood, there's no injuries, but they have been very injury prone the past few years. I mean, look at the quarterback situation they have right now. Obviously, both quarterbacks getting hurt last year. But it'll be interesting. Maybe we'll see a little more light on the Trey Lance hype train once the season starts to come around. But we don't know what's going to happen as of right now. So until then, we'll just have to wait and see what happens.